Tired of the hype about living the dream? It's time for truth. This is the place for tools, power, and real talk so you can create the life you dream and deserve. Your ultimate life. Subscribe, share, create. You have infinite power.
Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Your Ultimate Life. The podcast been running for 5.5 years, almost 6 in April, about how to create a life of purpose, prosperity, and joy. And this is the special Thursday edition that I started a little while ago, talking about what AI is going to do, or could do, in the coaching industry and what it's going to take to stay in that business. And I've got a couple of coaches with me here today. Ryan and Luisa, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Cool. So we're going to be unstructured and just kind of talk a little. I'll start it off with a question. Ryan, you happen to be in my upper left-hand corner, and I read left to right, so you're first. The initial sort of kickoff question is, are you using any kind of AI stuff in your coaching practice? And if you are, what are you doing with it? And if you're not, why not?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of what I do is very deep subconscious belief work, kind of like brain surgery for limiting beliefs. And AI is not at a point yet where you can do hypnosis with it. So I don't use it directly with my clients. I do use it a lot for research. I found it very, very good for that. And the other piece that I really use it a lot for is messaging. I have autism. I tend to over-explain massively, and trying to translate this crazy thing to normal people speak has been a problem for me. So being able to take my messaging and everything I want to say, drop it into AI, and get a more simplified version that's easier for people to lock onto, and at a pace and structure that they can use, has been extremely useful for me. It actually lets me get my message across in a way that is a lot more accessible.
So it's exciting for you in terms of what it can do for you in a holistic sense, not specifically in client work.
Correct. And I can see later on down the road, as I'm sort of expanding some of my programs to be longer programs, I could definitely see we're having some tools to where you could have the interactive like Q&A to get some additional support. I can see where that would be very useful down the road. But the way they're structured right now, with large language models essentially being a screen grab of the internet and very typical models and very typical responses, it doesn't really line up with the models and principles that I use. So the challenge there is trying to engineer a custom AI that actually reflects your principles and can leverage that in an effective way. And that's a pretty big engineering challenge.
Cool. Luisa, what about you? What are you doing with it?
Oh, I love using AI. I started using it in the fall of 2020. I did work for about a year with a startup operating in stealth mode, building AI technology and leveraging AI technologies to build an app for teen mental health. And so at the time, there was all this talk about it. I'm like, how am I going to use it in coaching? I'm doing this work with a startup. And so I just dove in. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I wanted to start using it. And turns out that was a really helpful and useful way to use it, because I tried to use it for everything that I could, from summarizing transcripts of calls with clients to polishing my writing, to admittedly outsourcing my writing, and very quickly learned that is not the way that I want to go, and not the way that I want to show up, at least to be original and a true thought leader. These days, I use it still to support me with polishing writing, giving me feedback, brainstorming, up to and including, and Ryan, you touched on this, the beginnings of like deep transformational work. Like, help me think about this deeply. Like, I'm having a conversation with Steve Jobs and Einstein on this topic. Let's riff. And it's kind of fun.
So if you think about, we call it artificial intelligence, but it is not intelligent yet. It is a massive collation and organization and research thing, but it hasn't reached AGI yet, artificial general intelligence, which is, the supposedly scary point. Ryan, if you think about, I hear the word in these interviews, creative partner. That word comes up a lot that people say when I say, how are you using it? If I think about that, or you think about creative partner, and also a little bit of what Luisa said, I'm having a convo with Einstein and Jobs. What occurs to you about the possibilities for AI, specifically with respect to coaching, transformation, belief change, the kind of stuff that you're working on?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest challenge I see in AI, there's two big challenges I see in AI in terms of those things. Not three, actually. Number one, AI has no idea what anything means. Because everything's thrown in a blender and it's all taken in one bucket, the same words and the same concepts mean very different things in different buckets, right? If you're talking about transformation from a psychological standpoint, from like a spiritual standpoint, from belief work, that has very different implications, right? So getting the context right and playing in the right bucket is something you have to work at. The other thing I would say is the reasoning piece of it is very rationally structured. So it doesn't have that same emotional frame in order to be able to establish that right context off the rip, right? And so you really have to do a lot of work to set up the questions in such a way that AI can give you good answers. You often will have to say, okay, this is what I mean by these terms. One guy I know has basically an 80-page document of treat this term this way, treat this concept this way, that he has to load into AI in order to be able to do any real work with it. Now, I love what Luisa was saying about, hey, give me a couple of historical figures where there's a good corpus of data on how they think. I want to have a conversation with these people so I can work through some problems. Love that. Haven't been using AI in that way. Really excited to start doing that. And so using it as a tool to do research, ideation, and refining your concepts and modalities and techniques, I think is phenomenal, but we have to be really careful about how you set those problems up on the front end.
Cool. Luisa, what are you thinking about that?
Well, I'll start with where you ended, Ryan. And you mentioned this earlier, Kellan. I believe as we move forward as coaches, our lived experience, what we've done, the results with clients, what we have, back to what you've both alluded to, embodied. We get the information, whether that's AI, a book, a podcast, a conversation, a speaker, a keynote, whatever. And then there's how we can only as humans take that, integrate it, process it, and then distill it to our clients that meets them where they are and helps them move toward where they want to be. And that is the differentiator. So, in that sense, there's an acceleration, at least to me, of information in a very strategic way that I can receive. But then ultimately, the buck stops here or maybe starts here in terms of what I do with it. And that's the edge that we can leverage AI for to differentiate ourselves in the market.
Do
And if
you
I can
guys? Oh, go ahead.
if I could dovetail a little bit off of that, I think the thing that a coach can do that AI almost never will be able to do is challenge a client, see the gap in their logic and their
Yes.
reasoning and their mindset and their framing. That is the problem they're facing. Because if you're going to AI saying, hey, I've got this problem, I'm seeing it this way, what's the solution? It doesn't necessarily know the questions to ask to break that frame. It doesn't necessarily know the questions it needs to explore to figure out where the gaps are in the understanding that led you to this problem in the first place. And that's where that lived experience as a coach is 100% critical. That is the edge that I don't think you can duplicate with AI anytime soon, if ever. Even if you get to AGI, I'm not entirely sure, because it's that emotional experience, it's that lived embodied experience of engaging with the world that gives you that. And AI cannot engage with the world, cannot get that feedback loop, right? And I think that right there is where the coach sits, that can't be duplicated by AI, but all the refining your process and increasing your skill set and messaging and everything else using AI to support you as a coach, I think that's phenomenal.
There's a.
Helen,
Go ahead.
I'd love to add one more thing to
Go
Ryan because
ahead.
this is so juicy where it's going. So one thing that I have done and have found really valuable that, again, to your point, AI cannot replicate the space that a human can hold for another. And going back to my original point about information and the strategic use of AI to distill information, I have taken a snippet, a segment of a conversation with a client, and I said, I have the sense I missed something here.
Yeah.
Read this. What did I miss? And it's like, boom, 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 boom. Here, you nailed this, you did this. And I look at it and it's all information. And then I'll have a nugget. I'm like, that's it. Dang it. I went right past that thing. And then I can take that information, integrate it, and then use it in service of my clients the next time around. And it is juicy to riff and collaborate that way with AI.
I love that.
One of the things that, when I did an analysis of where coaches are right now, actually right now is in April when I started this project, so 6 months ago or so, I asked for an income breakdown and it wasn't pretty. Coaches today, 6 months ago, including today, most of them aren't making a living, a living per se in terms of what I defined. And in the conversation, and I did it like you guys have described, back and forth and exploring different ideas, it used the word performative coaching. And it defined that, to your point, Ryan, as going through a series of actions, prescribed actions, checklists, processes, modalities, systems that they learned somewhere. And you said something, both of you, about this embodiment. And the conclusion we got to is the reason 95% of coaches won't be able to make a living is because that entire section, the guts of coaching, today isn't at the level of human connection. It is at the level of performative, where coaches seem to be relying on some set of principles, processes, and tools that they learned, which may be really valuable. I'm not, dissing any of those things, but unless we have personally walked over that broken glass, all we're doing is talking about that thing over there. We're talking about something that we know and not something that we have experienced. And so what it seems like to me is that as AI improves, and in the process of writing this book, 6-7 months doing the research, writing the book, I saw the capability of ChatGPT double and then double again in terms of its ability to research, collate, write, explain, connect quickly, and not have to have 57 iterations back and forth, that sort of thing. And if it does that every, 3 months, and by Christmas, 5 iterations more, that's going to be 32 times better than it is now. And so if you think about that kind of growth, it seems to me the only thing that's left, the 5%, is going to be the truth of your lived experience. And if you don't have, if that's not where you coach from, you'll be replaced immediately, because you'll be able to buy that for $79 a month in some bot that is really good. And I have experiences in doing this where I'm like, looking at some of the answers and scared, and then talking to it about, why am I emotional about this? Why am I reacting this way? And then going down that rabbit hole and having that conversation. So what do you think has to happen? Either one of you, I don't care. What has to happen? What is the pivot that coaches have to make in order to stay in the game?
Luisa, how about you go first if you've got thoughts, or I got a couple ideas off the top of my head.
Yeah. The first thing that came up is spend more time in your body. I know it sounds like, okay, well, if I want to be embodied, then that means more time in my body, but like fully, like feel your body, dance, move, whatever that looks like. If it's golf, if it's soccer, if it's cold plunging, like connecting with knowing your body, because what that then will do, to use your analogy of your analogy of walking on glass, you can know because you've read or you've heard or you have a bot. You can go to a bot and go, okay, I want to walk on glass. What do I do? Okay, well, you do this and you do that, and the theory and the information, and it's all very transactional and maybe helpful, but certainly not transformative. Or you can have walked, to your point, through glass and go, listen, here's what no one's going to tell you about walking on glass. You can avoid walking on glass, go here, do that, and then you don't have to walk it. Or if that's what you're supposed to do, then you're going to walk on the glass. But when you're halfway through, you're going to feel when it cuts your heel, there's this pain that's going to shoot all the way up your leg, and you're going to feel it in your tailbone. And in that moment, you're going to feel like you are dying. And what you need to do is stop, but you actually can keep going because here's actually what's happening in your brain. And here's what's happening in your body. And the person gets to the other side, and it's like, holy crap, I thought I was going to die, but I didn't. And an embodied human, that's how they can unpack the human experience through one example, like walking on glass. And so being in our body is the only way, to me, the maybe not the only, but the truest, most potent way to embody our life, which is what we're both talking about.
And I think for me, there's a couple of different experiences that kind of come to mind. First, I joined a gym here in Austin about 6 months ago, and they say, "Oh, here's a free session with a personal trainer." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever. It's going to be the usual." Sat down, talked with the guy, and like one of the things that's really hard for me working out is like I just really can't get in my body. It's hard for me to be embodied, like actually be present. So it's talking about it's like, "Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and try a couple of different exercises." And the way he set the exercises up, I could not do anything but be 100% present in my body fully. I'm like, "Whoa!" Blew my mind. Right. And as soon as he did that, it's like, okay, here's my money. Design me a program. Let's roll. Because he just absolutely freaking nailed what I needed because he understood what my needs were. The second thing I'll say is it's really easy to solve a problem once you know what the problem is. The hard part is figuring out what the heck is a problem. Right. And so if I'm there, if I'm your average Joe and I'm looking for a coach, I'm like, okay, I've got a weight loss problem. So I go to a weight loss coach. And he's got this meal plan. I do the meal plan. I don't lose it. Great. The problem solving from that point and the diagnostic process you have to go through from that point when things are not working, you got to be good at what you're doing, right? So is the performative coaching going to go away? I think there's a high chance that it will, right? But even with that, I would say two things. Number one, there's still going to be, I just want to say like kind of average Joe people that are going to still want that human interaction. Even with a more performative thing of where you're kind of going through a checklist. They want the guy that's just going to run them through the 12 machines in the gym because that's what they want. They want to be able to talk to a therapist who's actually human, right? The other piece is that AI can't do emotions. They can't really understand emotions and what they mean and how they land and how to navigate somebody through those emotional experiences. So there's always going to be that space until they figure out how to get emotions in AI. I have no idea how they're going to do that, where that human touch is 100% necessary. And even if it's in a more performative way, it's still a heck of a lot better than what AGI can deliver or what AI can deliver, at least for the foreseeable future. So is it going to be harder to make a living? Maybe. I think the other piece is that people don't understand the value of coaching writ large. We don't really make the case for it the way we probably should in the industry. So making that case of this is how to accelerate, this is how to save yourself years of pain and frustration in whatever you're doing, I think we need to be making the case more for why coaching is necessary. Just kind of at large.
Yeah. So let's go down that road a minute, because I think everybody that hangs a shingle and says they're a coach, and I'm still seeing Facebook ads that say, make a living as a life coach. It's got a picture of some person on a beach in a chair, work from anywhere, make money, blah, blah, blah. And you already know that they're going to teach a set of principles and ideas, each of which may be valuable and have good information, but without that true connection. And the true connection, at least in my mind, can only come when two things happen. When the person who is coaching has been through the experience, the embodiment piece, because otherwise you're just talking about stuff, and you might as well get it from a robot. And the second thing is the person delivering, who is the coach, cannot be poisoning the conversation with, what do they think about me? How good am I doing? Are they going to sign up? Are they going to re-up? Am I impressive? All of that dialogue, which is part of the 95% of people when they're having conversations that ought to be bordering onto or going into transformational, they're contaminated with that other stuff. And that poisons the conversation and reduces it to the level of performative stuff. That's the thesis that I have about that, and why $79 a month is going to give you what you need, except for those pieces of truth. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll say that that piece right there of like, here's the freedom on the beach, and I'm selling you that, is why you have so much performative coaching, right? The why that you're
100%.
driving into it, the why that you're going into it with, absolutely, you can do the right thing for the right reason. You can do the right thing for the wrong reason. If you're doing the right thing for the wrong reason, you're going to do it the wrong way. And if you're getting into coaching to have the freedom on the beach, you're doing it for the wrong freaking reason. If you're doing transformational coaching, it's because you've been through the crawling through the glass phase and you want to make it easier for everybody else coming after you. You're not necessarily in it to have the freedom on the beach. It's nice to have, but that's not your why. So you have to have a powerful why. The other thing I'd say is you've got that phrase of know thyself. You can only take somebody as far as you've gone. I'm not going to trust a 25-year-old life coach with anything, right? They simply do not have the life experience. They don't know themselves well enough to be able to do that. And I think that as a coach, you have to be very, very heavily invested in your own self-development to clear out as much of that junk as you can so that you can show up for your clients in the best possible way.
Kellan, I want to go back to the point you made about poison and the way that we can inadvertently poison a conversation. And I think it's important for every single coach listening to this, if you're scrambling eggs or if you're distracted for a moment, just stop and really, really hear this because I'm a full stand for it. Yes, what you said is absolutely true. It does poison the conversation. Yet if a coach says, what I need to do is stop that, they will fail because there is no ending the monkey mind as long as we're in this skin suit. Now, what we can do is notice and like a radio station go, oh, there's that radio station playing. I'm being a conduit and a vessel for what's meant to come through me for this person. And that radio station's playing that. Oh, so let me just turn the volume down because what we resist persists. And I'll only speak for myself. I did go through that. Oh my God, there I go again. There I go again. And now I'm in my head. I'm no longer in my body. I'm certainly not paying attention to what the other person is saying. And that's actually what I felt the poison was, not so much my own thinking. That's just my freaking thinking. It's what I did with the thinking and what I made it mean versus let the freaking radio station play. Let Justin Bieber play on loop. It's okay.
I lots to say about that, but I agree. The thinking is what defines who we are, the attention we give, the meaning we make, because everything only means what we make it mean. And I think there's three things that are going to make it difficult for coaches who don't develop. You said, Ryan, you need to be continually involved in that. And Luisa, you're pointing to that by saying developing your ability to turn the radio station down or ignore it and refocus on being the beacon of light, vessel of love, and a conduit of power for the person that you're speaking to, right? So I picture this. I think there's three reasons coaches are going to find it hard to make that pivot. Because most of them aren't doing that. And the reason is coaching is powerful and nobody's making any money. So that means they're not doing that. I don't have to be a rocket scientist today to figure that out because there's only a small number that are, and it gets exponentially worse over the next year. But here's three reasons, and maybe they're not the only ones. One is the head in the sand problem. I'm going to pretend, and I've seen people say this, I don't need to worry about it. I've already got this human connection, and people want to talk to another person, and therapist, bartender, whatever it is, etc., and sort of this dismissive kind of thing. And that's the head in the sand problem. And of course, they're going to get buried and drown in the tsunami. End of conversation. Second thing is picture this. A big casino, and there's lots of blackjack tables, all these $10 blackjack tables, and you look at them, and all of a sudden you realize every chair is filled with a robot. And so you look around for somewhere to sit down, and the only seats that are open are in the high roller room, and the ante's $10,000. And so what that says to me, and I believe it absolutely, the ante to get in this game has just gone up by 1,000. And I'm not talking necessarily dollars, but I'm talking about the ante to get in this game has gone up, period, because people have been stumbling along using methodologies, tools, modalities they've learned and do not have the life experience to speak the truth of and providing some value because the principles and tools themselves are valuable, but there's a huge limit on that. And so the ante to get, and you're going to get wiped off the board. And And the third reason is staying constantly in the mode of development and intentionally focusing on maintaining and increasing your ability to hold space, to be the beacon of light, vessel of love, conduit of power, and turn down the nonsense. That's hard work. It's not a trivial process. And so to me, those three things, head in the sand, the ante's gone up by 1,000, and the mountain steep, are going to be the reasons people don't make that change. I don't know. What do you think?
I think here's the one thing of what you said. By the way, I'm going to have that visual of the poker room forever. So thank you for that. And then like the high rollers, like, are you the high roller? Yes or no?
That's
Like,
it.
you know, I love
Amen.
it.
Hallelujah. You know?
And when you say hard, to me, I have a visceral reaction to it because the moment we speak hard, it is hard. And I'm not saying that there are not hard things that we navigate as humans. But with a coach, to me, the work you're describing is less hard and more heart. So it's not hard work, it's heart work. It's that looking in and going, I'm going to look at my, you know what? I don't know if you curse on the show, so I'll just keep it PG. You know, like I'm going to look at my fecal matter and I'm going to own it as my fecal matter and I'm going to move through what I need to do. And it takes slowing down, it takes intention, it takes time in your body. Maybe there's tears and it's heart. It's heart work. I really stand by that.
I agree. And let me say one thing, and then I know, Ryan, you're exploding with the thought. I can see it leaking out of your ears.
I've got a few.
Here, when I say hard work, here's a question I ask people all the time. How do you create your day? What do you do when you get up? And I ask them, what do they do, right? And some people say they have some kind of a morning routine or ritual, and some people don't. They get up and look at the phone and do all that stuff. And then there's a conversation about creating yourself. And then when we talk about how important that is and that no Olympic athlete warms up after the event and no concert pianist warms up after the program, and why would you waste any of your days half-assed and that sort of thing, like why any of that stuff. When you ask somebody, how diligent are you? 7 out of 7 creating yourself every day. Well, 5 out of 7, 3 out of 7. That's what I mean when I say hard or heart. You got to decide. You got to be committed. I'm doing this. Why? Because I said so. Because it's who I am. And that threshold, of laying it down, this is what I'm doing. Every day, no matter what, I don't care what I feel like, what it looks like, how cold it is or isn't, whatever, I'm doing this. That's what I meant by hard work. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got a few different thoughts. Like number one, on that sort of hard work piece, I got a friend of mine. We've been hopping on Zoom once a week for about 3 years now. And it's like Wednesday evening, we'll hop on Zoom, and half the time we're just like shooting the breeze. But the other half of the time, it's like, hey, I've got something on my mind. Great. Awesome. Let's dive in. And since we know each other so well at this point, we're really good mirrors for each other. Like we can cover a lot of ground really fast. Like we were on Zoom like probably for 4 hours last night and cover like, I don't know, 15, 20 different things we worked out, right? So having that constant touch point with somebody who knows you well and is a good mirror, it's not hard work. It's freaking fun. We're playing with stuff. It's great. The other thing I'll say is I think the first bit of attrition is not going to be in the coaches, but in the coaching companies. Because as soon as they can't sell that dream of life on the beach, it kind of cuts off that supply of bad coaches, and you have to know yourself well enough of, can I actually do this? And I think there's a lot of people who should not be getting in the coaching business because they're not actually well suited to it. Okay. I think that's a good thing. I think Darwin should be at work in this particular field, especially given the importance of it. Right. So I'm all for that. And I don't think it's necessarily going to be driven by AI. It is to a very big extent, but I think it's just a natural calling. We have to start getting people to align with their natural talents and find a way for them to maximize what they have, rather than saying this is the answer to your dreams. Not everybody should be doing drop shipping. I'm sorry, not everybody should be doing SaaS companies, right? You shouldn't try to be Alex Hormozi Jr., right? You're not Jocko Willink Jr. Find who you are and what you're good at, and then find a way to maximize that. Live that, because that's the way you're going to be living the most powerful, most authentic life in the best possible way.
I should use that for my advertisement for your Ultimate Life podcast, because
You
I've
should.
said, create your life of purpose, prosperity, and joy by serving with your skills, gifts, and life experience, because that's where you can make the biggest impact and the most money. So that's a great advertisement for that. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. And the last piece I'd say is, like Luisa was saying earlier, of like having these conversations with these different people throughout history and dropping and say, hey, what did I miss? When you got all these resources as a coach and you realize, man, something was off about this, and you've got a tool right there, especially if you've customized that chat GPT or that LLM for yourself and your modalities and everything else, man, you can go ahead and problem solve for yourself really, really fast. And having that on the back burner to up level your skills rapidly, especially if you could drop in like client results as this. Okay, now you can map your sessions to your client results and start figuring out what works and what doesn't. Oh, this isn't a good fit because this. Oh, I need to approach these situations different because this. Beautiful. AI is phenomenal at spotting those patterns and sort of drawing those parallels that you're going to miss because you're too close to it, right? So I think it's very much going to be a little bit more of a high roller game, in that the coaches who are good are really going to excel. I think you're going to see a cadre of coaches that are playing at the sort of lower to mid band for people who want that personal touch. I think you're going to see a lot of attrition of kind of like diploma mill style coaching programs. And I think you're going to see a lot of people start moving into different professions and different jobs just because it's actually better suited for them.
I accidentally created my first custom GPT, and I opened a thread called 1 million words. And I put all of my books. I have now 22 books. I put all those in there, a bunch of podcasts that I have, and I called the thread 1 million words just because. And after a while, Chatty corrected me and said, it's about 4.5 million words. Thank you. And so with that kind of library, like it quotes from my own stuff. It quotes from my books at me and my podcasts and tells me this, that, and the other. And so it does, and it can, and it is really valuable in that way because it sounds like me. I'm like, okay, I got it. I should do this, or I could do this, or think about this that way, and whatever. Luisa, did you have more on?
No, sorry, let me just drop it. There's a gentleman I follow on X named Brian Roemmele, Roemmelle, and he's all about building your own personal AI, building a mini me to help you do you better. I think that is such a phenomenal idea. There's a website that's it's called 1,000 Questions or something like that. It's about getting every bit of your personal story throughout your history, throwing that in there with all of your works and everything else. Man, you could do so many amazing things with that.
I'm
personalized.
I'm a testament of that. I have it. I used it. I built it while I was writing this book accidentally. I didn't set out to do that, but as I noticed, I'm like, holy crap, this is good. And so then I tell it what to do and everything else. Luisa, you look like you had a comment.
I was going to add that when there's I think a very helpful distinction that you guys both reminded me of as you were talking about leveraging AI and using AI to, for example, give in your books, your information, and then having it, Brian, to your point, become a better you. And the really cool thing about it, and I started playing around this with Delphi, is you can give it your coaching transcripts. I could click create. I'm sure there's more than 1,000 questions out there. There's different variations of it, but give it all that is you, your coaching, your methodologies, frameworks, all of that, which is still ultimately in that bucket of information, which can be, and I believe will be, valuable to coaches and their coaching practice. So it's not, let's throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's know that it has a space and a place, and there's the high poker, the high stakes poker table, and everybody else. And you can still be a coach. And I know people who like coaching is like a hobby. They're maybe a stay-at-home mom and they just want to have a couple clients on the side. And that may be great. So there's a spectrum. But on one end of the spectrum, leveraging AI is, to your point, and your book in many ways, essential and critical, but knowing that it has a space and a place and what it cannot and must not replace. And then kind of weaving both of those in service of creating a transformational, really impactful coaching practice. And remembering that at the end of the day, people may find information helpful, but what they'll pay for more and more is transformation. And that AI can't touch.
It's all about results.
The word that Chatty kept using for me in that context was, I put, I was surprised when I did the analysis of all the different coaching methodologies, and it said this is where they fall short, this is their vulnerabilities, and then I asked it where are they vulnerable to AI, and it ranked them all low, medium, and high, and said all that, and it got to be like really frustrating almost. And finally, I said to it, "Okay, fine, you're going to do all this and replace all this. Great. What do you suck at? Like, what are you going to be terrible at? What can't you do? What are you never going to be able to?" And we've pointed all about that, presence and the transmission of that ethereal thing that we know is just the spirit, the spiritual connection that we have. And it gave me a list, and the list is really good. And then it said the thing that to me epitomizes that thing. And it said after it said all that stuff, then in one line, "I can't bleed." And I thought, okay, now we have the essence of that. And so that is the words of embodiment, of the truth of full presence, of not being poisoned in any way by having turned down whatever irrelevance there is, and all of that stuff. And to me, that was like, okay, then that means those that last, that are in the high roller room, in the top 3 or 5%, that are going to be high value, in demand, and very impactful in terms of results, you have to be, we call it the embodiment, you have to have walked the road, and that has to be who you are, not just when you put your coaching jacket on, but all the time, because it's who you are. It's not a persona that you create. So that's what it said to me, and that phrase just, "I can't bleed." I thought, okay, that to me was the encapsulation of all of that. What are your thoughts?
I think fundamentally you've been through the struggle. You know what it's like to struggle and fail. AI can never understand that. AI can never understand what it's like to be there going, "I don't know if I can make it." Right. And I think there's a lot of space for that, even in those lower mid tiers, not just in the high roller room. There's a lot of space for just something like that. Right.
Do you think so?
Yourself through stuff. I think so. Yes. Because just having somebody there to empathize of, "I've been there, I've been through it. Therefore, it's possible for you too." Right. It's the possibility that you can make it's giving that hope of, "I've been there, walked the struggle. I know exactly where you're going through. This is what I did. It's possible for you too. Let me go ahead and figure out what it is that you need so that you can do the same."
Luisa, what are you thinking?
What came up as you were saying that, Ryan, is in all the incredible conversations that I've had since November of 2021 with ChatGPT, never, ever have I felt, "Oh, they get me. They've walked this walk." And I never realized that before just now, just how incredible it is to be holding space for, or having space held for me from somebody that says something and I go, "Yeah, they've walked it." Now, I've felt that ChatGPT is very empathetic and can give examples, and I sometimes feel like seen, but that bit of, yeah, oh, they do get it. They get it. Unreplicatable by anything other than another human, to your point, who has gone, "Yeah, I've been there, done that." And like you have gotten the t-shirt.
It's like I used to go to a boxing gym, right? And these guys aren't charging a whole lot for coaching, but you're in that gym and you're doing this stuff, and there's so many life lessons you learned just by being around guys who have been through it. And that's not something you can replicate, because kind of what one of my points earlier, it doesn't necessarily know what to ask to figure out what your gaps are. But a human who's been there, been through it, knows what that's like, knows exactly what you're seeing. It's like, "Oh, you're missing this piece. I bet if I ask you these 3 questions, I'm going to be able to figure that out." Because they've been there, they know it, they've lived it. And that's something I don't think AI will ever be able to replicate.
All right, so we're getting to about time to be done. Luisa, I'm going to start with you. What else? What haven't we talked about that you want to say about coaching, about AI, about dangers, about possibilities? Either one, any of it.
Yeah. There are people today who are playing the game called I want to be a coach. And I don't mean game as in they don't take it seriously, as in I get that this is both a process and an outcome-based journey. And will not, to your point, as you have researched, by this time ish next year, will not be able to sustain themselves from a financial standpoint outside of having it be a shared household with somebody that can give them the runway, et cetera. And I think, and I speak for myself, in the early years when I was going through the thick of it, and it felt like every day I was in the foxhole, and it was like, I'm like, oh my gosh, will it just stop? Like every day, it felt like I was bleeding a little bit as an entrepreneur. Like every day, I'm like, will it stop? And I had the thought, I have to make it work, and have to is very different than commitment. I am committed to making it work versus I have to make it work. And I came to a very blunt realization that just because I can be a coach doesn't mean I have to be a coach. And I was building my practice in a gotta trap, because in my head, going back, my fingers are in air quotes, going back to corporate would be a sin. And that was a whole doorway and a threshold to go through, to go, wait a second. There's nothing inherently good or right about being a coach. It is a choice. And if you get to a point as a coach where you go, "Oh, this was an amazing run, and I'm grateful for the experience, and I'm going to go in a different path," that means nothing about you, and it doesn't mean you've failed, and it doesn't mean anything about your worth, and not that anything ever means anything about our worth, because we dictate it ourselves. But there's no shame in getting to a point, if someone does, where they go, yeah, I was going in this direction, and now I'm going to pivot.
I think that's fabulous, because I think a lot of people are going to have to get to that place in the next amount of time, just because, the ante and the mountain and all the rest of that jazz, however you want to describe it. Ryan, you have any closing thoughts that we didn't cover?
Sure. I think it kind of goes back a little bit to riff on Luisa's about identity. You have to know yourself. You have to know your why. You have to know kind of what your purpose is to the extent that you can. Like, I never wanted to be a small business owner. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. But I also knew nobody was going to let me do what I needed to do the way I needed to do it. So in order to fulfill my purpose and deliver what I can, it was, all right, great, I got to do this thing, which is, and it's a horror show, quite frankly, when you're starting out. It's a mess. It is not easy. And even if you're, after you get good at it, like, there's some major bumps in the road. Like, you are kind of playing the survival game a lot until you really, really kind of establish your foundation. So you got to be willing to pay that price up front. Like, you can get anything you want in life as long as you're willing to pay that price, but that price is often in blood, sweat, and tears. So unless you write that check on the front end, knowing what it's going to cost you, like, this is probably not the path for you, and that's okay. But just know what you're getting yourself into, and only do it if that is what you're built to do and what you're here to do in this world.
Well, I want to thank both of you, Ryan and Luisa, for sharing your hearts, your thought, and your feelings with us today. I really enjoyed it. Ryan, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I honor the work and the being that you are. Luisa, thank you.
Thank you. Grateful for you and for this conversation, Ryan and Kellan. This has been awesome.
It's been an honor.
All right, listeners, I want you to take this. As you've noticed, if you've listened to these, every one of these is different. The points are made, the ideas that come forward, and there is some commonalities. It's a crossroads in our industry. You're going to have to decide who you are. And if you're going to stay in the coaching industry, you're going to have to decide that you're going to pay the price, whatever that is, to get where you're going. But I can tell you, and you've heard in the stories of the two that have been here today, that to get to that point, if you make that commitment, it's worth it. And one other thing as we end, and that is there's nothing that can keep you. You are the only one that can do the work, and there's nothing that can keep you from creating your own ultimate life.
Never hold back and you'll never ask why. Open your heart and this time around.
Right here, right now. Your opportunity for massive growth is right in front of you. Every episode gives you practical tips and practices that will change everything. If you want to know more, go to KellanFluckigerMedia.com. If you want more free tools, go here, YourUltimateLife.ca. Subscribe, share.
Stand with your heart in the sky and your feet on the